Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dialogue Podcast. Today's conversation is with G. Scott Jr. Some of you, if you're Buckeye fans, you might recognize that name. G is number 88, tight end for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And, often with something like sports, athletics, football, you see this guy in a helmet running around doing athletic feats. And so usually you sometimes reduce somebody to just what they do on the field. I've gotten to know G over the past year or so and have just really come to admire his thought processes, his heart, his authenticity, his passion to grow in his faith and his relationship with God. He's a young guy, 23 years old, but I think you're going to see from today's conversation that he's really receptive to wisdom. And I just really love having conversation with him. I've had a number of conversations with him with no camera, and today we turned one on, and it really, frankly, was just a natural conversation. In fact, I need to give a little warning disclaimer. For the first few minutes of the conversation, he and I were just talking. We didn't even really think like we were doing the podcast. And so our microphones weren't like up to our faces or whatever. We were just kind of making conversation. And next thing we knew, we were really in a deep conversation. And then we pulled the microphones close. So there may be part of this where the audio kind of varies in quality, but we kind of just jumped right in. And so without any further ado, welcome to Dialogue. Let's get into the combo. I think I'm not, this isn't like a prophetic word or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like I think there's going to be a movement in your generation and AB's generation.
Yeah.
That is going to be less social media, less phone. Because right now I think people are sort of in the throes of addiction.
Yes.
I mean, I see it like, it's like, it really is like, it has a grip on people.
Yeah.
And it's like any addiction, like while they're in it, you're kind of living off of it. And at some point you go, this can't be how I want to spend my life. Like you start to do some deeper thinking and you realize like, I got to get this out of my bloodstream.
Yeah. I think it's like the beginning right now of like a very subtle right now, but the beginning of like a little bit of an enlightenment. People starting to realize this, like something's not right about it. If you go up to the vast majority of people, I'd say over the age, maybe not. If you're 15 years old, you're just excluding and you don't know anything else. But like you start asking people in their 20s and maybe younger 30s, most people will tell you like they know that this isn't good. Like I don't know if all this is good, dude. Like even me in the mornings, dude. Sometimes I'll wake up. The last 2 days specifically, I've had to do this. Oh, thanks. I've had to do this specifically. I woke up immediately. I'm looking for my phone. I grab it finally. I'm like, I put it down. I'm like, man, let me just pray. Like I just need to lay back and pray. Because what am I just so looking for my phone for? And that's what led me to like start to delete. You know what's crazy? I'll go to delete my social media off my phone because I have two phones. I have one that I just keep at home that I don't even pay on. It's just an old phone that I have that I'll usually keep my social media. If I want to post, I can go to that and post. But I keep this one just for my day-to-day use, messaging people. Somehow social media ends back up on this phone every time. Like I get Instagram back on there somehow. Sometimes it always starts, maybe I'm just downloading it to see, and they all end up back on my phone. I'm like, I just deleted it. But the reason, my motivation behind deleting it is just like, I don't like anything to have grips on me. And I know Christ in the word doesn't explicitly speak to mobile devices, but I don't think in the Lord that I know and serve that he is maybe even proud of some of how fast my hand just wants to go to my phone. Like I just turn to it. Like it's just so natural. Where's my phone? And I just go to it. And something about it doesn't sit right in my spirit.
Paul says don't be mastered by anything.
Yeah.
In Romans 6, he talks about essentially we're the slaves to the one who we obey.
Yep.
And he has that part where he talks about, hey, when you did whatever you felt like doing, it's like toward the end of Romans 6.
Yeah.
When you did whatever you felt like doing, you thought you were free, but you weren't.
Yeah.
You thought you were free because you're like, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
I can pick up my phone if I want. You can't tell me I can't have my phone.
Those are the real chains.
Yeah. So he goes, you thought you were free, but he goes, what did it do? Is it actually led you into bondage. So you weren't free.
Right.
You were a slave to that thing.
Yeah.
That whether it's, again, when we say sin, usually people go right to like moral, like a moral code, or rules or whatever. And it's like, it's not even about rules, but it's about not being mastered by something, not having control of your life. And so I think that's where it takes like some wisdom and some discernment to go, like, exactly what you did is dead on.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
Why do I feel this compulsive need
To reach,
dude, and to turn this thing on and take a hit, take a snort of this thing? I
think that's so profound, especially what you just said about speaking to sin. When people think of sin, they think of this moral law that's just violated, or I just cursed you out or did X, Y, and Z. Jesus says something along the lines of that it's not what goes into your body that defiles you, it's not what goes in your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. Why? Because it's a representation of the heart.
Right.
And I think a lot of sin that we see, and the sin that I try to help work myself on, aren't even things that I do a lot of the times. It's where my heart is on something. Mm-hmm. It's not something that the things that I fall to, to sin externally. Those are things where I'm like, Lord, work with me on this. Let me get by it. Let me work past it. I know that's not right. Let me get by this. My real issue is, and I think that this is important for there to be awareness just for people in general, that the sin that we really need to worry about is the ones that's just engraved and sketched into our hearts. The ones that the ones that are deep into our heart, because that's where the sin starts. The sin doesn't start as an external experience. The sin starts externally, but it just roots its head on the outside. It's just what people see. All the sin that people see is just the other end of it. It's just a replica. It's just a portraying where the heart is, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I think
it's a symptom, right? So think about this, man. Like you're onto some good stuff right here, because in the process of maturation, right? You think about it. Let's just think about human development. You think about a kid, right?
Yeah.
Early on, you got to teach them like super fundamental things, like look both ways before you cross the street, because you don't want to get hit by a car. Don't go with strangers and just get in their car. Okay, like there's a lot of rules. What you do have to teach them, like what goes up comes down. Mm-hmm. If you go jump off of that, then you really hurt yourself. So there's a lot of those like fundamental things. And as a kid gets older, you start going beyond just, are you saying bad words? Are you stealing from people? Are you violent on the playground? Have a explosive temper or whatever it is that we might go, wow, that's like antisocial, bad behavior. Right. Into, like you said, some of the more subtle type of, we'll call them sins, but some of the more subtle type of things that can create bondage in a person's heart that might be more damaging because it slips through the radar. It goes under the radar. We don't log it. We're like, it's not morally wrong, but it's like, but no, it still has a grip on you. It's controlling you. It's controlling your life. And so it's not about legalism and like God's up there going, my goodness, man, why, gee, really, man, why don't you just throw your phone in the trash? It's really more about God's desire for you to be able to operate in freedom and not have this compulsion, because there's something deeper going on. So like, I'm at the place as a dad. I've got, sons who are still in the place in their lives where we're trying to teach them, to not punch their neighbor. But then I have a daughter who's kind of way past that at this point, and we're trying to go, okay, let's
teach them deeper things.
Let's go deeper. Like, here's this thing that might seem innocuous. It might seem harmless. You might be able to argue intensely that it's not wrong. But do you have the discipline to step back and go, is this good for me? Right? Paul says, not all things that are permissible are beneficial. Right? So be able to do that. And I think there are certain diagnostics. Like I think there are things like something you're really defensive about. You get really defensive. Like I remember like there was this, I was talking to a couple one time and they were working through a hard time in their relationship. And she brought up like, hey, he is like incredibly protective and defensive about his phone. Like he won't let me, he won't let me see his phone and won't let me in his phone. And he was super, super defensive about it. Like, why do you need to be in my phone? You don't trust me. He felt it was a violation of trust. He felt like it was an invasion of his privacy and all this kind of type of thing. Her concern was, what are you protecting, dude? Why are you, we're supposed to be in this intimate relationship. What do you have to hide? If you have nothing to hide, whatever, right? So they were kind of going round and round. And for me, as I was sitting there, I could certainly see both sides. I could see like, I mean, I don't want to have the type of relationship with my wife where we just feel like we're always
snooping and checking
and whatever, right? But at the same time, what is it in my life that my wife can't have access to, right? Yeah. Here's my password. I mean, I've got nothing to hide. If I do have something to hide on my phone, okay, and I'm scared my wife's going to find it, dude, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And if I'm ultra defensive about my phone and I'm so eager to make the case why it's my phone and my privacy and my whatever, I'm not saying, you know, that we should be overbearing in our relationships. But I'm thinking often it's like, okay, that might be a red flag. That might be a red flag that it matters too much. That it maybe has more of a grip on you. You couldn't just let it go. You're not open-handed with it.
Right.
You're white-knuckling it.
Yeah.
That could be substances. You know, people go, well, it's not wrong to smoke this. It's not wrong to drink that. It's not wrong to whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And for me to come superimpose my standard on you, right, might be overbearing. But like if you're like defensive, adamant, you know, to me that's a red flag that it's maybe has more of a grip on you. Yeah. You might actually have psyched yourself out to think you're free. Yeah. But you might actually be in more bondage than you think you are.
Dude, I don't know what really provoked this thought, but you kind of just said something that almost provoked the thought again, that there's almost like these two sides of when love is sincere, there's almost two sides of it. There's a side of you don't want to be overwhelming and you don't want to be all in their business about something. And then on the other side of you don't want to be all in their business about something or to pursue it too hard. But on the other side, there's an amount of trust that you want to have. There's two sides of it. And I've been thinking the same thing with Christ and his love for us. And I think it's kind of hard to fathom this idea because let me just kind of get to what I'm saying practically. It's like where's the line between God is a perfectly just God, but his grace is perfect too. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's just, he has a law that he's just to, but then he's perfectly gracious. And so people are standing in between the two and they're confused, they're looking both ways, and it's like, which one's love? Which side of it do I go to for love? And it's like, it's kind of hard, this idea that's kind of hard to fathom is this idea that having both sides is love. And so it's not necessarily keeping your phone till you can never see it ever, 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 but it's also not, you can have my phone whenever you want, and I think you should be checking my phone on a daily basis. And that's why I think there's this thing that comes with love that
I think the reality is, dude, if you are trustworthy, let's assume health from both people.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship with someone who is hyper paranoid, is maybe really wounded for good reason. Maybe they've been cheated on 5 times with people on their phones.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So now they're just like super suspicious of everything you did and you gave them no reason to. That's one thing. Right. But if you have 2 healthy human beings, let's assume health. Right. And you've given your partner no reason to doubt you or question you, then they're not going to be going over running through your phone all the time.
Right.
My wife doesn't do that. Yeah. She could. Nope. I've given her my passwords. I'm like, I have nothing to hide, and feel free. If it gives you peace of mind, you can go go nuts in my phone. I don't care. Yeah. To my knowledge, she doesn't do that. Maybe she does, and I don't know. Right. But I also know I don't have anything to hide. Right. But my whole life has shown her that. Mm-hmm. So because of that, she's not running through my phone. Yep. Yeah. Even though she could. Yeah. And so I think like so how do you earn trust? You earn trust through consistency. Mm-hmm. I don't trust a loose cannon. Right. Loose cannons are scary, dude. I don't know which G is going to show up today. Yeah. Is it going to be the down and out G? Is it going to be the up and out G? I don't know. Is he ticked? Mm-hmm. Is he erratic?
I think that is one of the biggest transformations in my life that I've seen walking with the Lord now than my life before. That was like, in a nutshell, what you just said was my life before. I would flash maybe here and there and just show like this great version of myself, this outwardly great steward in our society. And then the next day I'm just in the dumps and I'm just like, who are you talking? I'm so defensive. Mm-hmm. I'm a loaded gun. I used to call myself that sometimes, or I used to see myself as like a loaded gun sometimes. I'm just ready to fire. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing the Lord has given me is this idea of just stability in where I'm at, and just really just being able to be consistently the way that I am. Not that I'm consistently perfect, not that I'm consistently bad, but just consistently myself. And I think it almost relates to, you know, what I do on the football field. Like, the guys that are the best at what we do, they're not people who flash really, really high and they show great upside, and then they go down to the dumps the next day. They're usually guys that sit right, because like I was just saying this the other day, if I'm a head coach of a team, I want the player that if it was a scale out of 100, NCAA just came out, there's a 100 overall rating scale and it goes down to 0. I want a guy that sits right at 83 and just is right at 83. Then a guy that's at 99, and then next day he's at 58, and then the next day he's at 63. It's like, dude, where do you stand? I don't know where I stand with you.
Streaky.
You're streaky.
We don't.
I don't know what I'm getting, but I just noticed the guys that are the best at what we do, like the consistent ones. Now, you always have your one-offs that this guy was just a freak athlete and he was able to do it. I'm talking just the vast majority of people that I've seen be successful in this sport are the ones that just show up every day and they're so consistent.
I remember actually hearing, I think it was like in a press conference. You know how certain things like coaches or people say, and it just sticks in your head.
Yes.
Ryan Day was in a press conference at one point, and he said, if you can be great once, it just means you have potential.
Yep.
He said, but if you can be great over and over and over again, it means you've achieved greatness.
Yeah.
You know, it means you're great, right?
Yeah.
So the ability to do it one time doesn't mean that you've hit that bar. It's can I do it again and again and again and again?
Yeah,
right?
because anybody can flash. Like, everyone has a gift of some sort. I don't know what that may be in anybody's life, but you have a gift of some sort, and anyone can flash and show a good sign of that gift or exercise that gift. But yeah, to Coach Day's point, it's like, that's not very hard. Like, for me, like, football was something that it came quite natural to me. So for me to go out there and flash and show something like one-hand catches don't really impress me anymore with that people go and make. It's the ones who do it consistently, like those guys that are able to make those crazy catches, that impresses me, because it's no longer just, oh, I have a gift and I can flash it. It's like, no, that guy has a true skill that he developed and he can do it consistently. And so I think that's a lot more.
You see that, right? Guys that make the freaky catch, but then they drop the one right in their chest,
right,
and consistently drop.
Right.
I mean, everybody's going to drop,
right,
you know, everybody's going to drop a ball.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. But like guys who consistently drop the catchable ball,
yeah,
and then every so often catch the uncatchable ball, it's hard to build consistency on something like that.
Amen.
So how is that translated? Obviously, like football, right? You come in and the way you practice is the way ultimately you play, and it's developing skill and consistency. How is that translated into the way you approach other areas of your life?
Yeah. I would say, quite honestly, just with my life being surrendered to the Lord, I think it's been the quite opposite. It's been the other way around. The way that I live my life, football has just been a fruit of that, if that kind of makes sense. The foundation of my life, the branch, the roots,
yes,
where it grows from is the way I live my life. And then when you get up that tree, you get off on the branches, and somewhere on those leaves you see football.
Wow.
Now, the way my life used to be, football was my foundation. It was my root. And my life grew on that. And everything you've seen in my life was a fruit of my football, right? So when I'm having a great day on the football field and I'm balling, trust me, you're going to see as my fruit is going to bear witness to how I'm doing on that field.
Wow.
But the moment that I'm not doing good, and the moment I'm down in the dumps, or I'm not performing, or had those drop balls, or me and coach aren't seeing eye to eye, you're going to see those fruits as well. So I look at my life, it's almost the other way around. Like the thing I do on the field, not even just on the field, but like off the field, the way I take care of my body, the way I approach the weight room, dude, I just see it. It's a fruit of Christ. It's my life is built in Christ, and it's just football is just a leaf that comes off. And then when I do ministry events, that's just a leaf that comes off. When the way I treat people on the street, when someone cuts me off, that's just a fruit that comes off. And so I think football is just one of those branches that come off of my firm foundation, my root in Christ. In Jesus,
that's incredible.
In Jesus'
name.
No,
that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like you said, that makes the whole thing make sense.
Yeah.
Because when you're going, hey, before in my life, I was erratic. I was up, I was down. Well, of course, because the whole foundation of your life, or like you said, the root system, the trunk, the thing that was setting the tone in your life was your performance.
Yeah.
Which is going to be some days better than others, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to be up and down. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's what's setting the tone for your life,
Yeah.
that's going to flow out into how I show up in relationships, how I show up in my faith, how I show up to myself in my mind, everything I do, versus you inverted it and you took it from the root system and the trunk to a branch, and that's its proper place.
Yep.
So now I can actually enjoy it.
Yep.
And it's not, my whole life isn't built on it.
Yeah.
So that if it crumbles, I crumble. No, this is part of my life. And if that branch gets cut off,
what's it gonna do?
Yeah.
It's gonna grow. Something else gonna grow.
And I got a bunch of other branches going on.
You're not chopping my whole life down. You chop down that twig on one of my arms. Now, granted, you chop one of my arms off, it's gonna hurt a little bit, but you're not killing me.
Yeah.
You know, you're not killing me. You're not taking my entire being from me. And that's where I once was. And I think the maturation process of me truly learning Christ, it was really this. If you saw my service the other day, you would have, you saw that I shared my story, how one by one things were taken from me. Like, man, boom, boom. And that right there was a metaphorical uprooting of my entire tree trunk. And it was like a dead space. It was like the time in between, is it Malachi? Is the last book in the Old Testament? Mm-hmm. Or is it, is it Malachi? Yeah. Yeah. Malachi, it was like the dead, what do they call it? Malachi and Matthew. It was like that dead space. Mm-hmm. That was my dead space. That was like, I didn't have a foundation in anything. And so I'm trying to find things. I'm touching into different spiritual pedigrees, trying to find this idea of where am I? Because I'm lost. That was an uprooting. And then that's when the seeds of the Lord, well, they were already planted, but that's when I began to be built up again with a new foundation. And I think maybe not everyone has their foundation built in football per se, but in Joshua, it says, if you choose not to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve. Mm-hmm. So if you choose not to serve Christ, everyone starts off this world, like your default is sin. It's a natural, man. Like Paul talks about, it's just that your default is sin. So I think coming to Christ is the uprooting. Maybe it's not always as dramatic as my story, but like it's the natural uprooting of what your tree trunk once was. And it's the rebuilding of a new one in Christ. And I think, from there, I think everything's just a fruit of your relationship with Christ.
So what's funny is my relationship with Shaylin, my wife. I was never a real big nature guy. Okay. Like no disrespect to nature and those who are into it, but I just wasn't even all that curious. What kind of bird is that? What kind of tree is that? Mm-hmm. Whatever. I kind of would just drive by and not pay attention.
Right.
And my wife is very nature smart, very nature curious. So I kind of joined her in that in terms of bonding with her, and I've learned a ton about it. But it's funny because this year at our house, she moved like some significant plants, like pretty large, like bushes and stuff like that. She wanted to take them from here to there. And so it was funny because it ties in with what you're saying, because some of these bushes, like when we uprooted them, and actually I didn't, because I probably would have killed them. But like when the landscapers uprooted them, they were in kind of full bloom, or they were nice and green. They move them over to another place and put good soil and reestablish them. Yeah, I kind of expected they would just not miss a beat. Like they would just go from bloom to bloom, right?
Glory to glory.
Bro, they look like they're dead. Like they take a beating. Like, and actually they literally say like, it's like the tree, or the sometimes again, moving a tree or a large bush, it's like it devastates it. And so at first it kind of dies, like something dies and it looks dead. Yeah. But and sometimes they do die. But like if you watch it, it's like, okay, now Shannon go, oh, this one's going to be fine. Now it would be next year. Wow. This year we're not going to see it. This one's going to be fine. But she's like, look, you can see this new part is growing, or dude, this thing is green. Like, so it's got a little bit of life visibly.
Dude, that's good.
But that moving caused a certain death, and for a while it kind of looks dead as the regrowth is taking place.
Dude, that's good, bro.
Yeah.
And I think with people, and I said this in my Bible study maybe this was probably like 6 months ago. I did this whole idea of, I think it was like Matthew 7, the firm foundation and stuff like that. And just, there's a lot of, just to your metaphor right there, or not, I mean, to make a metaphor out of your reality.
By the way, by the time when we put this podcast out, is right, I'm going to be preaching on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe just go ahead.
Praise God.
Go ahead and preach on it.
But no, I'm actually going to get off of that a little bit. But this is just in the time I was talking about that. There's many. What I'm saying right here is before I even get into it is just to give a sense of sensitivity to some of the hearts of believers out there and the way that we perceive those who are not saved. So there's many people just like myself that were once uprooted. Mm-hmm. And remember how I said like kind of felt like I was in this dead space, lost, maybe like some of those bushes, maybe I'm turning brown and I'm looking like dead. And they're in the midst of trying to find new life. I believe that it's our duty as believers. And I think sometimes in those brown leaf stages, or when you're in the midst of dying, sometimes you look your ugliest. Sometimes you come across rude, you're impatient, you're disrespectful, and some of the ways we act is not great, and it may it may come to a head in ways that don't look good in society. And what we do sometimes as believers, we cast back stones and we throw rocks at those bushes. Rather than our job, I believe, is to help cater them back to new soil, new life.
Nurture them, water them. Help support them. What do they need, right?
Dude, the other day, just a practical example. This guy, he messages me. Dude, that'd be so funny if he sees this message or if he sees this podcast. He messages me via Instagram. And he says, I forget verbatim what he says, but he goes, something very disrespectful in the game. I guess in the video game, I guess I did something and I just made a bad play in the game. He reached out and messaged me. He's like, dude, your guy, I'm not going to say the words that he said because they were not good.
So NCAA.
Yeah, but he's going like, man, what the your guy's trash. You need to. And he goes like at the end, he goes P.S. like, I'm the real N-word of Ohio. Like he's like you're not like he's like really bucking up. And I'm like, I'm reading this message like, dude, this guy's really offended right now. And there's two ways to handle this. I believe you find yourself in a fork in the road.
Yeah.
The natural me. Boy, I was ready to get on there, look on his Instagram, and pick him apart and respond and bash him back. You wish you could be on the game.
Yeah, Purdy wants to say you're playing with my character on a game.
Right. But that's an option. I think everything about our society says that's the route you take. Yeah. Because what do we say in our society? I match energy. Yeah. You bring this to me. I bring it back. I clap. I don't let nothing slide. That's what our songs say. Yeah. I don't let nothing go by. Yeah. I responded to this dude. As a matter of fact, after this, I'll show you the messages. I responded to this dude and said, "Hey man," I was like, "I'm sorry." It was real brief. My first message was, "Hey man, I'm sorry that happened, bro. God bless you, man." And he responds and he kind of says something else. Like he started continuing a little bit, but he tried to laugh. I don't think he expected me to respond. Yeah. So he kind of laughed it off a little bit, and he's like, "And Will Howard, and I respond again and I say that Christ has a calling for your life, and I sent him a Bible verse and I sent him some scripture, and he responds and says, "My life is already too miserable anyway to receive that." And I think at that moment, everything just made sense. This guy's miserable. This guy's hurting, and I think so many times, just like that branch I was talking about, just like that bush, it may rear its head really bad. What's that called? Is it rear its head? Not rear its head, come to a head, whatever it is. Yeah. The fruit of that may come off really, really bad, but deep down in their heart, all they're doing is hurting. So a lot of times when I see, you may have experienced this yourself, when you're driving on the road, you ever have this happened to me yesterday. You ever have somebody on the road like really just running behind you and they're just really on your tail and they're mad and they just honk and they swerve past you. Again, you're at a fork in the road. What's the decision I make here? Oftentimes it's, man, what the heck is wrong with you? Yeah. How dare you? But then there's another side of that where it's like, no, I have this revelation in my heart there. No, he's actually hurt. I didn't do anything to hurt him. Yeah. This dude's mad at me over a video game. I'm not the issue. This guy's hurting. And so if we would just slow down, and the reason I started this whole thing, and I'll say it again, was a message to us as believers to begin to have sensitive, delicate hearts towards those who may come off as rude and disrespectful, because all that is, what is it? It's a branch off of their root. Yeah. Off of their tree trunk. Yeah. It's not really, you didn't really do anything wrong, but they're hurting. And I think sometimes the best thing that we can do is in that moment is to speak to Jesus in them. because we're all made in the image of God. Speak, even though you don't see Jesus on them, Jesus is in them. Don't speak to them. Speak to the Jesus in them. Plant that seed. Jesus, I know you're in there somewhere. Jesus, hey, Jesus loves you, man. You know, and I think so many people could use that. And if we could, I try to take that. And not that I'm perfect with it, but I try to take that seriously.
Dude, you just took the conversation super deep because I think like that whole process that you just described of you feel a natural impulse of defensiveness and your talent emerges in a sense because what is your talent beyond football? Your talent is, dude, you got a great mind and you're good with words. So right away, dude, this guy gets on, is talking crazy. And so right away, you've got killer comebacks, right? And so, and in a sense, like you're in the power position.
Yeah.
And so if you view power as I'm going to flex on this dude, I'm going to squash this dude because I can.
Yes.
And what's going to prove my power is he'll know how much more powerful than him I am.
Yes.
Okay. That's what Caesar does, right?
Yes.
That's what Caesar does. Jesus, right, who comes in, think about when he's in the temptation and he's going, hey, I could call 10,000 angels.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, call these angels to rescue you. And again, at other point later on in the Gospels, he's going, I could call 10,000 angels down right now. In other words, I have power that I'm going to restrain, not because I don't see power as my ability to flex my power on you.
Yes.
But actually to sometimes withhold what I could do.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
For your good.
Yeah.
And so for your ability to corral yourself, to think more deeply, to restrain the fact that you could have unleashed on the dude.
Yeah.
Or frankly, and it wouldn't have necessarily been wrong, you could have just completely ignored him.
Right.
But you went, hey, I'm going to respond. And I'm actually going to put water on the flame instead of gasoline to kind of go, hey man, sorry my NCAA player's trash. Dude, you deserve better, bro.
I literally apologize. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro.
Dude, I'm sorry. Like, maybe next year, dude,
I probably really let you down, bro. I'm sorry.
And to show that humility, no matter how he responds, like that's like, that really is a mature response. And even your motive behind it wasn't, hey, I'm gonna do some sort of verbal jujitsu where I hit him with this thing and
make him feel dumb,
be condescending. It wasn't even that. No. It was like you could sense, like you said, there was pain in there, and there was something that was masking the Jesus in him.
Yes.
So instead of slapping the mask, I'm going to speak to the Jesus.
Yes.
And again, who knows where that whole thing ends up? A lot of that's going to be up to him and decisions he makes on his journey. Yeah. But you seeing that is actually incredibly powerful. We were talking earlier. It says Jesus came full of grace and truth. He came full. It says in John 1, full of grace. Not Jesus was half grace and half truth. Yeah. It says he was completely full of two things: grace and truth. Yeah. And so to be able to package that right in that way and to not go get into that negative energy and start getting into this slapping competition and whatever, I mean, that is an incredibly mature response. And I think, again, beyond just, it's just a mature human response, but it's also a Christ-like response. Amen. Right? To go, sometimes you do just ignore. There's a time to ignore certain things. There were times Jesus spoke not a word. Yep. But then there were times that he took a moment, right, to do that and felt led to do that in that way. Yeah. But to get yourself under control, self-control, and to go, okay, cool, I feel what I feel, and it makes sense. And he kind of did mean it personally, and it kind of felt personal, but I'm going to kind of get myself together and really think and pray this through before I respond and how I respond. And I think, most people listening to this don't have a NCAA character, right? But we all can relate to that whole thing, right? That whole dynamic where somebody's kind of coming for you in a petty way or something, trying to strike low and ruffle your feathers, and you go, oh, well, how am I going to respond?
Yeah, I think just to add on that is there was and I had to read exactly what he said, but there was something that he said in that last sentence about like I'm the guy behind, like you're coming, you're in my, something about that he said, it almost kind of offended me a little bit. Like I got a little offended, and it actually did take some mindfulness and prayer to respond diligently, and with a Christ-like response. And I think the easy thing to do is to look at this situation and say, like, for the viewers listening, and saying, well, if I'm put in that situation where someone says something, I'm just gonna respond with love. But I think even more so than that is, what about when you actually feel offended? What about when you're actually like mad? Like you're like, dude, you don't talk to me like that. I'm gonna come after you. And the Bible says something along the lines of like, oh, what was I gonna say?
Well, by the way,
I want to come back to that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, there's often a thin line between things, right?
Yeah.
So something that looks one way, often there's a very thin line between that and the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So someone who thumps their chest and says, I'm the man in Ohio, right? They're doing something that we would perceive on the surface as incredibly arrogant.
Yeah.
But often there is this super thin line between arrogance and insecurity. The person that feels a need to chest thump.
Yeah.
Of course, we all have that moment. You do something great and you're feeling good. And you're it's there's nothing wrong with like feeling good about what you do and all that kind of thing. But often the person that feels a need to thump their chest is like just a razor's edge away from like really masking and hiding like tremendous amount of insecurity. So the fact that he kind of showed you both in the same thing, right? He's thumping his chest, and then in a moment that you actually showed yourself to be a safe human being in a safe place, all of a sudden he goes, actually, dude,
I am hurting.
I'm hurting really bad.
He said he's miserable.
So think how many times in the world we don't even have that back and forth. All we see is the chest thump.
Yeah.
And so we go, that guy's so full of himself. He's so arrogant. And the reality is he may be masking like a lot of pain and actually have a pretty low view of himself. Yeah. And that way of, that thing they're saying or that thing they're doing is trying to convince themselves and everybody else. They're trying to hide behind that.
Yeah. And I think I had a past of, I think I can relate with that because I had a past of doing that. Because I feel like with my testimony, I'm very open and just honest with it because I just know what Christ did and I can just testify to what he has done boldly. And I think I maybe can just recognize it because I've been there before, almost wanting to over compensate for something that no one even challenged. I didn't even challenge your masculinity or message you and to proclaim to be something. You just messaged me saying like I'm the and it's like, dude, where'd that come from? But I remember the scripture I was gonna say is just like, what good in it? The Lord says like, what good is it to love those who love you? It's like even the worst of sinners can do that.
Yeah.
It's like, but how much greater is it to love those who hate or to persecute you? He's like, that's where the juice is.
Yeah.
For me to love you, man, that come on now. Like, what are we talking? That's easy work. And people, don't just look at yourself in the mirror like, hey, I'm the man because I did that. It's like, no. When people challenge you on the road or your coworker, your coworker, you just can't stand them. I hear it from people sometimes where, like, it's like this idea like I'm done with that person. Like that you did this, oh yeah, I'm done with you. Like you're cut off, and it's like that's almost culturally sound. That's sad, but it's almost culturally sound to be like, I cut you off.
Yeah, we would call it justice.
Yeah,
we would think of it as justice, right?
Just.
But what you did there, okay, whether it was conscious or subconscious or what was going on, what you did was instead of taking that guy and pushing him way out, you actually found common ground with him. Like you in a sense, again, whether it was conscious or subconscious, you went, here's a guy thumping his chest who's hiding some sort of hurt or insecurity. And the reason you recognize that is what you just said 2 minutes ago. Yeah. You're like, I used to do that.
Yes.
I used to do that, right? And so the idea is like, how do you love an enemy? Or how do you, like you said, if someone loves you and you love them back, like that's awesome. It's beautiful.
Great.
But every, that's totally natural. Yeah. What's not natural, it's unnatural, but is incredibly noble and Christ-like is love your enemy. Well, cool, Greg. How in the world do you do that? Well, what you did, you found common ground. You went, although, dude, I'm on the ugly end of this criticism. Yeah. I see something in this dude. Like, I know what it's like to want to go, I'm the man. I know what it's like to thump my chest and be hiding something.
Yeah.
And there was something there that, although he was trying to provoke you, and if any human being in your position would feel a sense of defensiveness, there was something that sort of overrode that. There was like a voice like whispering to you, and you saw something in that, even maybe subconsciously, that you're like, I've lived that pattern. So maybe there was even just a little bit of compassion that then turns into a lot of compassion once the walls start coming down. You know what I'm saying? So I think like you said, somebody, whatever it is, you know, we run into each other in the world, in traffic or in life. Someone's being rude, someone's being, you know, doing something that rubs you the wrong way. If you just give it a little bit of thought in prayer, and you contemplate a little bit, you go, I've done the same thing. And what headspace was I in when I did that? That's probably where they're at. Right. I mean, I've been very kind to people in my life, and I've been rude as well. Like I've done that. Like, so I can imagine the headspace that makes someone be rude or cut somebody off or gets frustrated, in life, and isn't the nicest guy. Like I can understand that headspace. And so I think, how do you get to that place where you, instead of going, well, it's justice for me to fight fire with fire, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, right? That's back to the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is saying that's the whole love your enemy thing, is follows up that statement. You know, you say eye for eye, tooth for tooth.
I think another practical answer to how do I love you, like you're saying, like there's true nobility in Christ, like living in loving those who hate or persecute you. And I think another, answer to that would be having a sense of security, or you have to ask yourself the question is like, where is my identity? Where does my identity lay? I think you and I, we actually spoke about this at your house.
Yeah, I want to ask you that. Like, how do you, like, you're what, 22?
23.
23 years old. Okay. You're in a pretty unique situation. I'm not saying you're the only person in the world that has this, but like very rare to be 23 years old. You're in Columbus, Ohio, playing for Ohio State. It's a blue blood program, right? You're talking one of the top, I think the best, but whatever people, however you put it, top 3-5 program in the nation.
One.
It's one. I agree. We have a broad audience, and I don't want to hear from the Bama fans or whatever, but you get the idea. Like, I mean, it's elite. You're on national television. Ohio State takes over the city of Columbus, not just Ohio State football. So in many ways, like, you guys are the center of attention. So you're getting this deluge of attention, deluge of criticism. Like you said, not just when you do something on NCAA, but when you do something literally in a game life, and you're getting just crushed, or your family might be getting crushed. And then also the nature of the game is you have a number on you. And so it's hard for people to see you beyond the scarlet and gray and the number 88. And that becomes your identity, maybe in their eyes or whatever. How in the world do you process through that to where my jersey number or my performance isn't overtaking my identity? Because the gravitational pull of all of that is wild. How do you navigate that?
You really just said it. There has to be some sort of disassociation between the field that you work in and who you are. So I'm just trying to be conscious of that. Like, my foundation of who I am and what I do, like we spoke about earlier, is not in football. And I think that can be countercultural to hustle culture or grind culture. It's not who I am. Like this past week, we had for a part of my team, we had to write who our identity is. And I know there's going to be a lot of answers. Like, who do you want your identity to be? What do you want to be known as? And I know a lot of it going to be a lot of tough answers. Like, I want to be known as the hardest hitting. Dude, I wrote nothing but Christ. I just want to be known as a servant, like Christ calls me to be. I want to be the leader that Christ calls me to be. I want to be the teammate that Christ calls me to be. I don't want to conform to this world. I want to be renewed, by the Spirit, a renewal of my mind. And I don't want to conform. And so I think when people cast stones at a house that I'm not in, it's hard to hurt. Does that make sense? When you throw stones at my football career, or how well I dress or how my hair looks. When you're casting stones at that, it's not really making contact with me because I'm not in that house. I'm in the house of Christ. I'm in the house of the Lord. So you want to hurt me? Come tell me that, dude. Come tell me that my fruit is rotten, that I'm not serving Christ like I should. You might turn my stomach upside down if you said that. But I think when it comes to, Twitter and blogs about what you say, I don't think you're going to hurt me because that's not the house that I'm in. And I think on the opposite side of that, on the contrary, when you praise me and you say how good I am at what I do because I can catch the ball, I'm not in that house either. When you come paint this house, oh my gosh, let's put a mural there. Let's stake a goat in his front yard and let's worship him because he's so good at what he does. I'm like, y'all have that. That's not where I am. That's not who I am. Please don't do that. Because I just want to, I sincerely, and I hope it doesn't sound cliche. I don't care if it does. I truly want to be one with Christ, the best I can be. And so this football thing is just, I do love playing the game. More than I love playing the game, I love the camaraderie of a football team and brothers in Christ on the football team to being together for one common goal. But I think any attack or praise, Woody Hayes used to say this thing way back in the day. If somebody is something, I don't want to butcher it. So all the Buckeye fans that know the quote literally, give me grace. If somebody praises you, or if someone talks down on you, it says kick him in the shin. Or if somebody praises you, you kick him in the shin. Either way, you don't take it. Don't take it. And even to my faith journey sometimes, or when people come to me, I just got a message this morning. Something about these words right here, I'm telling you, I sincerely say this, it almost like I get cringed because it's not true. When people message me and say, dude, you're such a good person. Like, you're so good. No, dude, no. That's not what I'm going for. You're missing what I'm saying. Good people don't go to heaven. Forgiven people do. I know my salvation is sure, not because how good my works are, but because my faith is true and I'm truly forgiven. That's why. And so every time that I hear that, like, so whether it's for praise or whether it's for bad, I just have to remember that I'm just like, what's my purpose? So like I was going to say a moment ago is just when people attack you, you have to ask yourself a question. Where does your foundation truly lay? If your foundation, if you're all about this football thing and I care about my ratings and how good I'm perceived on this football field, dude, I would have went haywire over that message. You say my character's not good. But I think it's just a simple question is who do you serve? And I think if you ask me that question, I truly in my heart sincerely serve Christ. Yeah.
Your thought process on that is dead on. And I think the key is going to be staying calibrated to that, right? So you think about, like you said, disassociate or detaching what you do from who you are, right? So you even said, like, you're throwing rocks at a house I don't live in. What if you're talking about football or fashion or whatever, right? They're talking about, you're like, those are things. They're not me, right? So they're outside of me. And so for you to attack that, okay, if it was me, if I saw it as me, I would really take it personally.
Yes.
And so what ends up happening, and again, it's super hard with something that has the gravitational pull that football has, and especially at the level that you're at.
Yeah.
People will try to put you on a pedestal, or they'll try to put you in a pit.
Yes.
Right. So they try to push you low when it serves them,
right?
Or they try to put you up on a pedestal, essentially deify you or demonize you, right? And so you having that sense of self and sense of identity in Christ outside of that, and being super clear and staying super clear is absolutely key to you operating in a healthy manner, in a Christ-like manner, and being able to really stand the test of time, right? Because there are tremendous highs and lows in that journey. The way I think about it is take like whether it's your gift or your office, right? Your position, right. What you have, right? Think of those gifts and those opportunities. If you think of them as outside of you, like I would think of like gifts as like think of it like an instrument.
Yes.
Okay. So you can think of it as an instrument. You can think of it almost like let's say it's like a sword, right? And so my sword is not me. My sword is a gift that I have, or it's a tool that I use, or a weapon that I use for whatever I'm doing, right? And so you go, think about this. Like if I don't think of this weapon or this instrument as me, okay, and I think of it as outside of me, how would I relate to it, right?
Yeah.
I would go, like when I see you have a sword and I have a sword and I see you using your sword, and instead of me going like, dude, I'm so jealous because G's so much better than me, or his sword's better than mine, I would go, man, tell me about that sword. Like that's, man, it looks light. Can I feel it? Yeah, you hand it. I'm like,
hey,
what is it made out of, dude? And so you're not, now instead of being threatened by your success, because I'm not comparing Greg to G.
Yeah.
I'm comparing G's sword to my sword. And I'm like, that thing looks sharper than mine. Dude. That thing looks lighter than mine. Let's talk about that. I'm not threatened at all because it's not me versus you. It's you have a gift, I have a gift. You have a weapon, I have a weapon. Yeah. Teach me. And if you're skilled with it, instead of me going, like, this is one of the litmus tests I use is like, so for me, one of the things that God's gifted me to do is communication and content and all this kind of stuff. I know my identity is jacked and is off and needs recalibrated when I hear a great talk or a great message and I go, I never want to communicate again.
Yeah.
This is so bad. But when my identity's in the right place and I hear a great message, I go, I want to go write a sermon.
Yeah.
And not so that I can, dunk on that guy.
Right.
Because that guy using his gift and his sword or whatever, I go, man, I want to get back to work. Yeah. Like it inspires me. It doesn't threaten me. So like, I think again, with something like ball, right? Somebody's succeeding and it feels like they're succeeding versus it feels personal versus what they're doing with their gift. And if I can celebrate their success and I can even humble myself to learn from their skill with their sword and what kind of sword they're using, essentially I'm able to push that outside of myself. Yeah. It empowers me to be able to celebrate other people and what they do and to be humble enough to learn and to not allow, again, my performance to ultimately feel so incredibly personal. Yeah. And so I think those red flags, when it feels so personally devastating or I feel so threatened by other people, all it tells me is my sword is now becoming fastened to my hand. Yes. And now I think it's me instead of an inanimate object outside of me. So I think finding that consistent calibration, what routines do I do daily or, before or after a game or whatever to go, no one's putting me in the pit. No one's putting me on a pedestal. No one's going to deify me. No one's going to demonize me. You can try, but you're throwing it at this and I'm over here. I'm not touching it. So you're not going to hit me.
Guys, screen record that. Clip that. That is, dude, if y'all could have just let that can be the whole message of the day, bro. No, that's like, I couldn't have said it any better, bro. Like, that's like legitimately what I was trying to, in a nutshell. That's spot on, bro. It's like, wow, that was just, there was so many elements to that was just good, bro. Just the disassociation between yourself and then it's a sense of keeping the sword disassociated. Sometimes when the sword, maybe your sword starts working real good and everyone's praising it for you. So what do you naturally want to do? No, this is me, guys. Like this is me. This is what I've done. This is my work. And the issue is it's starting to become you again. It's like how can you keep that distance to the point of you're not threatened by somebody else's sword. You're not threatened by somebody else to where you're humble enough to say, hey man, how did you do that move right there with your sword?
And by the way, when people start praising you and they're going, dude, you're the greatest swordsman ever. You're like, actually, dude. Dude, I learned from it. Yeah. Actually, I so-and-so actually showed me this, or I got this other, you know what I'm saying?
Or this isn't mine. Or this is the Lord gave me this. Yeah. Like, or the Lord gave me this. Like our gifts that we have, like when people attempt to praise it, when we claim it for ourselves, and I'm not like on this like super don't give yourself credit for anything. Yeah. That's not like the kick I'm on. But I'm just saying like, everything that we have, everything that we attain, like this beautiful, like this, the things that we have in life, they're not truly us.
We're stewarding them.
We're stewarding them. God gave it to us to say, hey, You know, you get a 70-year, I'm giving you a 70-year advance
Yeah.
with these things.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I'm going to call you home, and these all stay here, and they're going to be stewarded by somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think when we personalize all these things, it's like money. I heard a wise man named Pastor Greg Ford say this a while ago, when it's what people can do with money. Is you said this is you, right? You said something about money and a shovel. That money is like a shovel, and it's like a tool.
Yeah.
And it's like the issue is when people start to personalize the tool and make life out of it. That's when it becomes an issue, when you start to associate with the tool. Just see it as a tool. Money can be the greatest thing. Money can be amazing. Money can be used right if you truly are seeing it as a tool. How can I, and what are you using the tool for? Are you building your kingdom up to the biggest kingdom so you can show the Joneses that, see, look at my kingdom? Or are you using this tool to serve Christ in any way that I can? That's what I shared in my message the other day. It was like, same mindset, but two different hearts behind it. The question is like, where's the heart behind what you want? And I think it's asking you shall receive with the Lord, but he wants to grant the wishes of a sincere heart behind it. We all think, God bless me with the NFL, right? I've been praying all day, but God knows on the other side of the NFL that there's death and destruction behind that because of where your heart is. It's like my dog. Like my dog, if there's a piece of chocolate right here on the ground, dude, my dog doesn't care about anything else but having that piece of chocolate. But it's my job as a superior mind, I have higher intellect than him, an intellect that he'll never be able to receive, is to grab that chocolate, because I know on the other side of chocolate is something that's bad for him that he doesn't necessarily want. But he doesn't know any better. Why? Because he doesn't have the intellectual capacity to ever understand what a man will ever know. And it's the same with us. Like, God sees us the same exact way. There's things that we will, like, no matter how wise you and I get, we can talk all day, we'll never have the intellectual capacity that God the Father has. No matter how much you know the doctrine, no matter how much you read the word inside and out, you'll never have the capacity to know what he knows. And sometimes he may detour us from things that we think that we want in our life, because he understands on the other side of that piece of chocolate is death. And so sometimes he takes us on a different route, and we're like, God, I thought. And so all that to say is, like, to check our hearts behind what are the things that we want. Yes, that's great that you want that, but why do we truly want that, right? Ask the why 3 to 4 times behind it. Well, why do you want that? Well, because I want money. Well, why do you want money? Because at some point you're going to get to an answer where it's like, you're going to get to the root of where your heart really is if you ask yourself why enough times. And I think that's just, and then secondly is, where's your heart? And then secondly, having faith that God is, he's going to narrate your life, and he says the Lord orders the steps of man, that he's going to order our steps in the direction that we go. We trust it. So good game or bad game, or bad press conference, good relationship, bad relationship, whatever it is, if I'm in alignment with the Lord and I'm truly, truly seeking him. I was just having a conversation with my buddy Matthew the other day. He was saying to me, he was like, something that's so amazing about following Christ, or actually I told him this, is like, there's no bad steps. If you're truly in alignment, you're following him. Even like the times where we fall, I mean, although we don't want to fall, but it's all working for our good. It takes the pressure off. Like, when I look at this football season that's getting ready to come up, I'm like, I mean, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I've put in a great offseason to work hard. And when I go out on the field, I'm going to give it everything I have. Dude, what's the pressure? Like, if it flops and it doesn't go the way I wanted to go, Christ looks at me like he just loves me so much, and I still have that relationship. It never goes anywhere. The world might write me off. The Buckeye Nation might not love me, but that's okay. Because that's not the house I'm living in anyway. But then on the other side, it can go great. And it just, either way, I just know I'm in alignment with him because I'm truly seeking him. So I think that's just more virtuous than being successful on the outside.
So I have a couple thoughts for you. I have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. But a couple thoughts. So when you think about, right, you're going into your last year, right, your senior year at Ohio State, and then whatever beyond that, whether it's the NFL or whatever God has for you, you think about getting the most out of that senior year, right? And I think it's absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, a lot right with setting goals and hey, I want to achieve these things and work towards them, and that's great. I think that's really good. But often, especially like it's a results oriented game, right? Yes. So with that, you can take that from a healthy place to where it becomes an obsession, and in fact, you almost think the success of this season is completely on the results, right? Yes. And of course that's part of the equation, but the success is really, and it's really what you make of it. And it's really about the experience and what comes of it, and even what it sets into motion for the rest of your life. And so a lot of that is not necessarily external numbers. It's your internal experience, right? Some of the internal rewards you have. So you go, whatever the stat line ends up being, think of the experience you have when you view all of your gifts, right? Your mind, your body, your hand-eye coordination, your leadership skills within the team, all of that, like the things that God has gifted you to do in that particular assignment and space. You see it as a gift. So you're going into that game mentally, you're going, God, thank you for giving me this gift, and thank you for letting me use it one more time. And you go out and you go, what's my assignment today? This week it might be excessive blocking. This might be, I need to make some plays over here. This might be, I need to bring up a teammate who's down. I might need to rally the team. It might be a variety of different things. What's my assignment this game? Because your gifts are not just physical, they're mental, they're spiritual. And the game's over. You walk off that field and you go, God, thank you for letting me use that gift again today. It's yours. Someday I won't have it anymore. I'm stewarding it. But thanks for letting me do this again today. Whatever the stats end up being, whatever the scouts end up saying, falls far short of that experience that you have that sets you up for the rest of your life. And to go, whether the goals hit exactly, you might not hit them, you might exceed them beyond what you ever thought. Who knows? Wherever that lands is secondary to this experience that is the most, the most important part of that, man. So I encourage you, like, consciously do that. And I think regardless of where that lands, it'll be like life-changing. It'll be, it sets the tone, for your life. So I want to affirm you, man, on when you spoke here at One Church, you preached a message. The number one, incredibly well done. I'm privileged to see the behind the scenes of not only the, academic preparation and study and working on communication and wanting to deliver that as best you could, but even the heart preparation. I remember we met the week before, and you're like, man, I was talking to a friend, and he's like encouraging me, man, find that secret place with the Lord. And I think between the academic side, between your study of communication, and between your time in that secret place with the Lord, you not only said things that were powerful, you came from a place that really reflected Christ. And so it wasn't just what you said, but it was how you said it. The testimonies that we've heard of just the way God used that message, and the way that God does that, right? He'll take your story, and people are very much able to take, okay, cool, that's what happened to G, but here's what happened to me, and to place themselves in it, and then to find Christ in it, was amazing. And then of course you baptized a bunch of your teammates. Dan, talk about that whole experience. Like, I remember when I talked to you after, you were like, hey, I shared my testimony, but today was a testimony. So why don't you give that testimony? What was that like?
Well, just the whole entire experience was just amazing, because there was just different components of it. Well, one, I don't even think I was able to articulate fully how mind-blowing what happened with just guys getting baptized. Like, when I tell you, like, dude, it's just, I don't know how to articulate words, but in January, like I mentioned, I literally seen this. Now, I wasn't baptizing when I seen it. I seen it from afar, looking at the stage. And I'm watching guys lined up exactly where they were, going from left, when I'm looking at the stage, going from left to right, going this way, lined up in a whole, now in my vision, and what I saw like 40 guys lined all up, ready to go. Now, there wasn't 40 guys that got baptized, but if you were there, you saw the 40 guys that were tons of guys lined up. Now, they weren't all getting baptized, but they were in there in support. And dude, I just am that rest of that day, I was just blown away because God showed me that before. And this is back in January before. I didn't know I was doing a message. I didn't know I was doing a message. I didn't know any of this stuff was come. I started to receive, like I mentioned, a lot of discouragement leading up to it because I'm like, I don't know how this is going to happen, because like there'll be times where I have 10 guys to come to church. There'll be times where it's just me and Trey. And then there's times where I just don't know, and like, when do baptisms happen and all of this. And I had a couple of my buddies, I didn't even tell you this, but I didn't say this on stage either. I had a couple of my buddies, a couple of my teammates were actually attending a church called Hope City. And I was like, man, all I want to do is help the unity of the team and bring them to Christ, because I feel like that's what I was called to do on this team. So if that means I need to start going to Hope City and helping like steward guys that direction, I'll do it. Lord, just lead me where to go. Like, I'm not prideful in where I go. Just lead me to help these guys. And dude, before you know it, like I come over to your house and you're like, want to do a service at ONE.CHURCH? And I'm like, huh? Wait, what? And I leave there and it didn't dawn on me yet. But the next day I go out to eat with Trey and some of my buddies, and Trey goes, gee, wait, the baptism vision you had. And I go, oh. I was like, oh my gosh, this is about to happen. And I immediately reached out to you. You got back to me, you're like, dude, that sounds amazing. And to see how it just all happened, and the way it all happened, and how like God just showed it to me and it really came into fruition, I'm still just blown away by it.
I think it's a great example of, like, again, you could see something in your mind's eye, right? You had a vision for something, and yet you didn't feel a need, or maybe you felt it, but you didn't go try to manufacture it. Right. Essentially, you operated by faith. You're like, Lord, I think this was from you. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to just, I'm going to be ready when you say, but I'm not going to go try to superimpose my will completely. I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to walk through doors as they open, but I'm not going to. And it's funny because I've had the same type of thing where stuff starts coming together and it's like, it all crystallizes and you're like, wait a second, that all came. Okay. I see now. And it starts to make sense even more on the back end to where you go, it's not like you just set out and I'm going to make it happen. No. I think there are some things that, Lord puts on our hearts. Hey, I want you to go be very proactive about that thing. But sometimes it is about just being in tune with the Spirit and going, I'm not going to let myself fall into deep discouragement. I'm going to be ready when that door opens, and then to be able to sort of recognize. And then again, sometimes God uses other people to go, hey, remember that? And then it all comes together, right? Yeah, dude. Yeah. And then just like the response after, when I was just seeing like all of my teammates or even when I was baptizing and I would look out and I would just see tears in people's eyes. And I'm just like, dude, this is just like a heaven sent moment. Yeah. I had I had a gentleman come up to me. He was double my age, crying in front of me, saying how that message like literally might've just started the rest of eternity for him. And I was just like so humbled that I could have been used to do that. And it was powerful. And like, it was amazing just all around the experience. I just want to continue to serve where I can, even if it's not on that big of a stage, speaking to that many people, wherever I can serve. Like, that's what I'm interested in doing, like with my life. And I think serving can look different in different places, but I just want to serve and give people the same revelation of Christ that I received that sincerely changed my life. I want to help cater that same message and allow others to receive that same revelation that I received. Man, it is that mysterious like relationship between God and his eternal, omnipotence, omniscience. He knows everything. He's all powerful. He doesn't need you and me. Nope. And anybody, right? He doesn't need. Nope. But he chooses to join with us, to partner with us, to use us for his glory. And so when you take that step of obedience, right? Like when I asked you to do that, you were like, and in some ways it's scary and you're like, okay, but you embraced it. You said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And God honored that step of obedience. He anointed your message. And he, like you said, things like you couldn't have imagined somebody twice your age coming and going, that was life-changing. Yeah. God used that step of obedience and the diligence in the preparation on every front. Yeah. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And he, he used it for his glory. Yeah. And I could have never said like no to that, because I was so confident that like the Lord
had this all, it was so intentional, dude. Like I mentioned to you the other day, like if you go turn on the 3 services, the 3 weeks ahead of me, and you see the gentlemen that were up there, the wise men that were up there that are all probably double my age, literally, and more, triple my age, maybe some of them. Like, dude, these are some like really wise men with doctorate's degree or whatever these guys have. And I'm just like a guy, I'm still in college. I'm in the middle of playing football. And you could have, I know the connections that you have. I know you could have went out and got anybody, but for whatever reason, like, you know, you chose, you said, hey man, I want to give you this, you know, I'll give you this, you know, this opportunity to do this. And I don't even know if you even fully knew that you were making all of this, like you were the instrument, part of the instrument that God was using to make all of the baptisms happen and everything. Like you didn't necessarily know that. I didn't tell you that beforehand. You just came to me and gave me the opportunity. And so leading up to it, a lot of people asked like, are you nervous? Are you nervous? And there was a little bit of butterflies, but really no, because I knew that God put this on my path. It was a divine appointment. It was like, this wasn't like, oops, like, let me just cover this, you know, let me just like hop in here real quick. No, it was like, I know God put this there for whatever happened, all the things that had to take place for me to be in that moment, to receive the opportunity to do that. I just know that God was behind it. And so when I truly believe in my heart that God is behind something, then I'm not going to turn that down.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know you're about to enter into about the busiest time, right?
Tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking time the day before to chop it up, man. I'm so thankful. Always, I get so much out of these conversations, man, and love you, dude. Thank you for being a part of this.
Love you, man. Thanks for having me, bro. It's been amazing.